Tonight, the International Court of Justice calls on Israel to prevent genocidal acts in its interim judgment on the case brought by South Africa. Also, the SA Liberals reveal their candidate for Stephen Marshall's seat of Dunstan with still no date for a by-election. Donald Trump ordered to pay more than $100 million in additional damages to writer E. Jean Carroll. And Daniil Medvedev completes a remarkable comeback, booking his place in the Australian Open final against Italian Jannik Sinner. Good evening, Richard Davies with ABC News South Australia. The UN's top court has stopped short of ordering a ceasefire in Gaza but called on Israel to prevent genocidal acts. The International Court of Justice agreed to 6 emergency measures in its interim ruling in South Africa's genocide case against Israel. It found they were needed to protect against further severe and irreparable harm of Palestinians in Gaza.
Outside The Hague's Peace Palace, a sea of Palestinian flags. Down the road, dozens of Israel supporters, all gathered to watch this highly anticipated ruling.
The court concludes prima facie that South Africa has standing to submit to it the dispute with Israel concerning alleged violations of obligations under the Genocide Convention.
South Africa brought this case to the International Court of Justice, accusing Israel of genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. Israeli lawyers reject this, claiming their military operations comply with international law following Hamas's October 7 attacks.
The court is acutely aware of the extent of the human tragedy that is unfolding in the region.
In their interim ruling, the majority of the 17-judge bench agreed to implement 6 emergency measures, among them a call for Israel to prevent any acts or incitement of genocide, a guarantee adequate humanitarian aid is reaching Gaza, and protection of any evidence of alleged crimes. But there was no order for a ceasefire, which South Africa requested.
I believe that in exercising the order, there would have to be a ceasefire. Without it, the order doesn't actually work.
The effect of the order that the ICJ has granted today is that there is a plausible case of genocide. This marks an important first in our quest to secure justice for the people of Gaza.
The World Court is a long way from the conflict in Gaza, but the decisions made here are legally binding for signatory states like Israel. The question now is, will this interim ruling be acted on, enforced, or ignored?
Like every country, Israel has an inherent right to defend itself. The vile attempt to deny Israel this fundamental right is blatant discrimination against the Jewish state.
There's a long road ahead. A final outcome on the genocide claim is expected to take years. Isabella Higgins, ABC News, The Hague.
And Palestinian communities around the world had high hopes for the International Court of Justice ruling. Global Affairs editor John Lyons was in Ramallah as the judgment was handed down.
From Yemen to Jordan, solidarity with Palestinians across the Arab world. Earlier, in the occupied West Bank, prayers and hope for a historic decision at the World Court. In Ramallah, the anticipation was palpable as Palestinians gathered to watch the ruling, at public screenings attended by their South African advocates.
It's 15 minutes to go until the ICJ's announcement. As a South African, what are you hoping?
I think in a nutshell that there would be an order that says ceasefire, that would give the people of Gaza and Palestinians generally a reprieve.
The 17 judges of the International Court of Justice have just walked out. Hundreds of people here, including foreign journalists, and the mood here, the anticipation is extremely high.
In the crowd were many overcome with emotion after months of war. Not all were pleased with the outcome.
The decision of the court wasn't that good. It wasn't for us or against us. Of course, I'm very happy for for people to know about us, about Gaza.
So what were you feeling while you were sitting there watching today?
I was disappointed because what I aspired for and I wanted is an immediate ceasefire and that all the humanitarian aid will go into Gaza. But let's not forget that this is a historic moment and we're very grateful and thankful for South Africa for taking the courage to file this case.
The reality for Palestinians is that whatever the court says, the war isn't going to stop anytime soon. John Lyons, ABC News, Ramallah, in the occupied West Bank.
The SA Liberal Party and Greens have unveiled their candidates to replace former Premier Stephen Marshall in the eastern suburbs electorate of Dunstan. But a by-election could still be weeks away, with Mr Marshall yet to announce when he'll retire. Here's political reporter Stephanie Richards.
Sweetening up voters on the parade.
A little love heart.
Anna Finizio named as a Liberals candidate for the looming Dunstan by-election.
I'm young, I'm fresh, I'm energetic, I'm ready to join David and his young and dynamic team.
Ms Finizio was the only Liberal to put her hand up to replace retiring ex-Premier Stephen Marshall in his eastern suburbs seat, having only recently contested the western seat of Hindmarsh at the last federal election.
Well, I'm deeply entrenched in the community. I've lived in Adelaide all of my life. I went to school around the corner here. You know, I bump into relatives, friends, schoolmates on the street.
What we've got in the seat of Dunstan is a member who doesn't want to be there. We've got a candidate potentially who's professed her devotion to the people of the western suburbs.
With the Libs holding on to Dunstan by just 0.5%, Labor's hoping it's second time lucky for candidate Cressida O'Hanlon, while the Greens say they have a credible chance of electing their first lower house MP.
It's still a huge ask. I think that, you know, it would be quite amazing if we were able to do it, but we're in it to win. And I will be putting everything I can to show the people of Dunstan that I want to represent them.
But a date hasn't yet been set for polling day, with Mr Marshall yet to announce when he will retire.
He really wanted to give the Liberal Party an opportunity to pre-select the candidate, go through that process. Now that's happened, I'm sure Stephen will do that in the coming days or weeks.
Setting up a mid-term test for all political parties. Stephanie Richards, ABC News.
Shops in Adelaide CBD will be allowed to stay open for an extra hour on Saturdays during the upcoming festival season. The state government has granted shop trading exemptions, so city retailers can remain open until 6 p.m. on Saturdays during the Fringe and until 7 p.m. on the Saturday of the AFL Gather Round in April. The extended hours were agreed during discussions between business leaders and unions because there'll be more interstate visitors during those times.
There will be further discussions with retailers and with the union that represents retail workers about any other possible extended hours for very significant events in Adelaide.
I'm not for whole-scale deregulation, but I think we could do a bit better than we are at the moment. And if Labor is willing to do it for visitors from interstate, all power to them, but let's look at looking after South Australians as well.
Donald Trump has been ordered to pay more than $100 million in additional damages to the writer E. Jean Carroll. The columnist sued the former president for defamation after he was found guilty of sexually assaulting her, but then continued to call her a liar.
An extraordinary victory for the woman who twice took on Donald Trump and won.
Carol, how do you feel?
A jury in New York awarded E. Jean Carroll the equivalent of more than 126 million Australian dollars in her second defamation case against the former president.
Does the smile say it all?
A separate civil trial last year had already found Mr. Trump liable for sexually abusing the writer in the 1990s and then defaming her by calling her a liar. This case focused on statements he made while he was president in 2019, which she argued made her the target of online abuse and death threats. Ms. Carroll's lawyers successfully asked for unusually high damages to try to stop Donald Trump's continued public attacks against her. This is a great victory for every woman who stands up when she's been knocked down, she said in a statement, and a huge defeat for every bully who has tried to keep a woman down. The former president described the verdict as absolutely ridiculous, and his legal team vowed to appeal.
Everybody's a right to defend themselves when they are wrongfully accused,
and to be able to say, I didn't do it.
Donald Trump is still facing another civil case in New York over fraud allegations, as well as 91 criminal charges in 4 prosecutions. But nothing has stopped his march towards again becoming the Republican nominee at this year's presidential election. Overcoming the political costs while the legal bills add up. Jade McMillan, ABC News, Washington.
2 Malaysian nationals will serve just 5 years behind bars for their role in the 2002 Bali bombings. The men were sentenced by a military court in Guantanamo Bay over the attack, which killed more than 200 people, including 88 Australians. Prosecutors alleged they were key deputies to plot ringleader Hambali, who'll face trial in March next year. The jury initially handed down a 23-year sentence, but that was overruled by a judge as part of a plea deal. King Charles is said to be doing well after receiving treatment for an enlarged prostate at a clinic in London. Royal aides have declined to say how long the monarch will be in recovery, but his public engagements have been postponed. The 75-year-old is staying at the same hospital where his daughter-in-law Catherine is also recovering from surgery. The King's wife, Queen Camilla, appeared hours after the procedure, looking happy that all had gone well. Wrestling icon Vince McMahon has resigned from the World Wrestling Entertainment's parent company in the wake of sexual misconduct allegations. A lawsuit filed by former employee Janelle Grant alleges McMahon sexually assaulted and trafficked her to entice wrestling talent. McMahon stepped down as WWE's CEO in 2022 amid an investigation into similar allegations. He denies any wrongdoing and says the claims are a distortion of the truth. The Prime Minister has condemned the actions of a neo-Nazi group who boarded a train in Sydney wearing masks and dressed in black on Australia Day. The gathering of more than 60 men was intercepted by police a few stops into the journey. Officers issued more than 50 infringement notices and arrested 6 men who have since been released without charge. The New South Wales Premier, Chris Minns, says he's considering outlawing racist salutes, while Anthony Albanese says he's horrified by the images.
They have no role in Australia. I don't want to see people in balaclavas, dressed in black from head to toe, who are engaged in neo-Nazi activity in this country.
The Joint Australians of the Year have issued a warning to the nation, saying our tanning culture is killing us. More than 1,600 Australians are expected to be diagnosed with melanoma this year. But sun safety advocates hope education and early intervention will help save lives.
Getting a skin cancer check for the first time in his life.
So having a look over the area, this is the only one that does stand out as a little bit different.
Beachgoer Branko Kalina will now need to see a specialist to see if a sunspot could be something more.
You just think, oh, well, it's not going to happen to me, or it's not possible.
It's an attitude many Aussies share, and one which the Joint Australians of the Year say is killing us.
When it comes to tanning, we are swimming outside the flags.
Professors Georgina Long and Richard Scolia are melanoma treatment pioneers. According to their research, more than 16,000 Australians will be diagnosed with melanoma this year, while 1,300 will die from it. At Warilla on the New South Wales south coast, Jay Allen has pulled up his truck to offer free skin checks.
That's why we got it here, so we can try and bring that rate down, save lives.
It's an issue that's close to his heart after surviving stage 3 melanoma.
I had 44 staples from my stomach to my thigh and I had to go for scans and blood tests every 3 months for 5 years. And, 32, I had the world at my feet, and all of a sudden it changed overnight, and my life was in the hands of my doctors.
The young generation is our future. We really need to start pushing out that awareness, because what we do know is that skin cancer and the damage is done to your skin early on in your years.
What's an Australian summer without a day at the beach? And while the weather's not exactly the best here at South Narrabeen, nothing will stop these kids from the bush getting their first taste of the ocean. 30 Indigenous kids are embracing the surf and learning that even on cloudy days, sun safety is just as important.
I hack, stay in the shade when it's hot and stuff.
Some simple advice we could all follow. Ethan Ricks, ABC News.
The popularity of smartwatches is booming, driven by Aussies wanting to be healthier. Around a third of Australians own a smartwatch, which collects data from how much we walk or sleep to the patterns of our heartbeats. While they can motivate you to be more active, researchers say it's important to understand the data may not be as accurate as you think.
We're measuring the maximum amount of oxygen Dr. Richard Alcock's body can use, otherwise known as his VO2 max. It's the gold standard for measuring a person's cardiovascular fitness. But how does an expert physiologist with all these machines compare to this, a smartwatch? Recent studies show a general consensus on their strengths and limitations. The studies found logging how many steps you take is relatively accurate with most wearables. Things start to fall apart though when you try to track metrics like how many calories you're burning. Resting heart rate readings can be quite good, but some watches struggle once you start exercising. They can also find it difficult to track other metrics like blood pressure and the quality of your sleep. This test is grueling.
Brilliant. Go through the results. Your VO2 today was about 62.5 in terms of what your Garmin predicted was, 56. Yeah, so
about 10% off.
So that correlates relatively well at 50.
The difference between these results is due to the watch not measuring Dr. Alcock's oxygen levels. It estimates based on heart rate and speed.
You're almost touching on this sort of Olympic level athlete for your age.
While it's not perfect, the devices are sold as an easy and accessible way of tracking your health and fitness.
Everyday use for the general public, they're great. To motivate fitness, to look at the amount of steps, track what their weight's doing, again, calorie intake versus expenditure. I think it's getting people exercising simply by having the watch.
Market data estimates more than 36% of Australians own a smart wrist wearable, and demand is growing.
Every brand uses different technology, which makes things difficult for clinicians and researchers trying to figure out whether smartwatches actually help us live healthier. All the tiny data points from this can be thought of as parts of your digital twin. There's a version of you made entirely of your data.
My principal areas of research is in sports science and strength and conditioning.
Professor Sophia Nymphius is a sports scientist working with elite-level athletes. She makes use of their digital twins, including data from smart wearables, to help maximise performance.
Elite athletes have a very specific training environment that is very different to the average consumer.
For most people with a less disciplined lifestyle, the watches tend to provide less accurate data.
I have different settings on my watch, and it shows me how the pace changed throughout the run. For some people, seeing those numbers can be vastly discouraging and may reduce their ability to maintain an exercise routine. We do need to acknowledge the negatives, that there's a psychological component to fully trusting and investing in a number on your watch.
Professor Nymphius suggests looking at trends over longer periods of time instead of obsessing over your daily digits. Kason Ho, ABC News.
Russia's Aryna Sabalenka is vying for her second straight Australian Open singles title, with the women's final currently underway. The world number 2 beat American Coco Gauff to make it to her second Grand Slam decider. She's taking on China's 12th seed, Qinwen Zheng. She beat Ukraine's Diana Yastremska in the semis to earn her first Grand Slam final spot. Russia's Daniil Medvedev says he will have to take his tennis to a new level to beat Italian star Jannik Sinner in tomorrow's Australian Open final. Medvedev booked a spot in his third final at Melbourne Park after pulling off an incredible comeback to beat Alexander Zverev in 5 sets.
Daniil Medvedev knows he'll need more than just a slice of good luck to get past Jannik Sinner.
Oh, you're kidding. He's playing better than before, especially end of the season. He started playing whole different level. So if I want to beat him, I have to raise my level.
Sinner's stunning win over Novak Djokovic prompted this response from the world number 1.
This is one of the worst Grand Slam matches I've ever played.
The young Italian has won his past 3 matches against Medvedev, but the Russian will use his experience. Tomorrow will be his 3rd Australian Open final. Sinner is making his Grand Slam debut.
I have no idea how Jannik is going to be, but me, myself, I have this experience. I will try my best. I will fight for my life.
That's out. And Medvedev battles back from the brink.
Medvedev drew on his mental strength to recover from 2 sets to love down against Alexander Zverev, going on to win in 5 epic sets.
I was a little bit lost, but during the 3rd set, I started saying myself that if I lose this match, I just want to be proud of myself.
Zverev says the match became harder because of an illness he picked up in the quarterfinals.
I lost it because of a physical state, not because of tennis, and that is for me disappointing.
The physical state of the 2 finalists could be vital tomorrow. Medvedev has twice fought back from 2 sets down, while Sinner has barely raised a sweat, losing just 1 set for the entire tournament. Tom Maddox, ABC News, Melbourne Park.
The second test between Australia and the West Indies remains delicately poised, with the tourists building a solid second innings lead on day 3. Nathan Lyon has done damage with the ball, claiming key wickets as the hosts try to restrict the tourists' score.
After navigating a difficult 40 minutes under lights with just the loss of Tajnarine Chanderpaul on day 2, the West Indies set their minds to building a big second innings lead. Kirk McKenzie playing beautiful cricket early on day 3.
Oh, divine.
He and captain Craig Braithwaite scored at a healthy rate as their partnership passed 50 and the lead neared 100.
Gets that one and past Nathan Lyon.
But the introduction of Cameron Green brought about a wicket.
In the air and out.
Pat Cummins' bowling changes continued to pay dividends, Nathan Lyon striking in his first over. And it should have been an even better session for Australia, but uncharacteristic poor fielding proved costly.
There it is! Don't tell me it went down.
Fielding continued to plague the hosts, a Mitch Marsh effort drawing the ire of both Nathan Lyon and the commentators.
The misfield was bad. The fact that he just loped after it was worse.
Lyon carried on and was rewarded when Alec Athanase fished at one outside off stump, Steve Smith making no mistake in the slips. But there was still a lot of work ahead for the hosts, with Kavem Hodge showing his first innings performance was no fluke, as the West Indies steadily built a competitive second innings total. Tom Wildey, ABC News.
An unbeaten knock of 72 from Beth Mooney has carried Australia to an 8-wicket victory over South Africa in their first T20 international in Canberra. In the first game of a 7-match multi-format series, Darcy Brown and Elise Perry both took 2 wickets as the visitors set a target of 148 to win. Australia captain Elisa Healy overcame illness to open the batting, falling just short of a half-century. But it was Mooney who led the charge, hitting 12 boundaries for the home side. The opener hit the winning runs early in the final over, keeping Australia's 100% record against South Africa intact. The 2 sides will face off again tomorrow in the second T20 clash at Manuka Oval.
We always talk about starting well as a team, and I think we set a pretty good tone today. With the ball, we probably gave them a few at the back end there. But, you know, to chase a game 1 down, or 2 down in the end was a pretty good effort.
DJ Vasiljevic has led the Adelaide 36ers to a 3rd straight victory in the NBL, smashing the Cairns Taipans 88-71 at the Entertainment Centre. The 36ers dominated early and led by 15 at half-time, Vasiljevic storming into the main break with a game-high 17 points. The Taipans lifted in the 3rd, but Adelaide rallied again late, extending the lead beyond 20 points at the final change. Vasiljevic finished the game with 28 points, while crowd favourite Trenton Flowers came on late to secure the 17-point win.
I think we need to come out against this Cairns team. I know they're hungry. All the ladder keeps changing here and there, but hey, sold out crowd again. We had to come out and get the job done.
Adelaide United has brought an end to its 4-game losing streak in the A-League women's competition, coming from behind to defeat Perth Glory 2-1 in Adelaide. Perth took the lead midway through the first half when Hannah Lowry was found in the box, converting from close range. But the Reds levelled on the stroke of half-time through their captain Isabel Hodgson, who scored her second goal of the season. Nanako Sasaki gave Adelaide the lead just moments into the second half, thanks to a blunder from Glory goalkeeper Morgan Aquino. It was Adelaide United's first win in almost a month and just its third win of the season. After multiple years and countless kilometres, Tasmania's travelling piano has found a permanent home. With a final performance in the state's Huon Valley, it was a bittersweet farewell for pianist Kelvin Smith.
Setting the stage for one last performance. Since 2019, Kelvin Smith has been keeping a promise: to play piano in beautiful places.
Any of the places that I've been in, there's just been one or two moments where I'm just totally in tune with the piano, beautiful instrument, in a beautiful environment, and it's just like, this world rocks.
It's an endeavour that's taken him from beaches to sidewalks and all the way to the enormous Gordon River Dam.
Even the simplest of locations, just wheeling it out into the backyard, you know, the local park, the local beach. Having a piano outdoors, there's something beautiful with that.
However spectacular, the travel has left the piano with its fair share of wear and tear. Kelvin now making the call that it's time for the instrument to retire.
Flying through the air under a helicopter is one thing, or hanging from a crane on the wharf in Hobart is another. It's got its own little stories to tell and battle scars to go with it. By anyone's account, you know, it's had a good run.
Having had one last performance, the piano will now stay at Tahoon Adventures in Tasmania's Huon Valley, the scenic location, a fitting home.
He came here the first time and played on the weekend. We opened after the fires. I think Kelvin, from what he says, would like to see people tinkle on it. Obviously, we don't want to get any damage, even though he says it's fairly worn out, but it's a lovely piece of memorabilia.
With this piano now finding its new home, Kelvin says it's time for a break and to focus on other projects. But he's not ruling out a comeback tour somewhere down the line.
Tasmania has so many awesome locations, and they're never going to stop calling me.
Meg Whitfield, ABC News.
On to the weather details now, and tonight's photo was taken at Port Elliot and sent to us by Jane Singleton. It was warm and sunny across Adelaide today. In the city, it reached 22.7 degrees around 3:30 this afternoon after a cool overnight low of 13. An afternoon onshore airstream brought cloudy conditions about the lower southeast and southern coasts. Otherwise, it was sunny over much of the state today. It reached 32 in Coober Pedy, 24 in Naracoorte. Cloud over the top end and east of the country in troughs and lows will continue to dump heavy rain, particularly over Western Queensland, and will produce rain and storms over parts of WA's north, the Territory and areas of New South Wales. A ridge of high pressure over waters in the south will combine with that low over Queensland, maintaining a southerly flow over our state for most of the coming week. That means it'll be mainly warm to hot with cooler conditions in our south. Storms or showers for Darwin and down the east coast to Sydney tomorrow, but it should be fine in Melbourne and Hobart with 24 degrees, 28 for Perth, staying hot over the interior with 38 for Alice Springs. Back home, isolated showers and storms about the far northeast corner, dry elsewhere across the state, 38 for Oodnadatta, 29 for Whyalla. It'll be cooler in the south, but conditions will remain fine, with tops in the major centres ranging from 25 in Port Lincoln to 31 in Clare and Renmark. Another fine and mostly sunny day for Adelaide tomorrow, 28 for the city, down to 13 overnight. On the waters, variable winds becoming south to southwesterly to 15 knots late afternoon, with seas below a metre. The sun will rise at around 6:30 and set about 8:30. Staying fine and warm to hot for the week ahead. 30 degrees on Monday, 26 on Wednesday, 29 on Friday and up to 34 degrees for this time next week. And that is the news this Saturday. Thanks for your company. From all the team here, have a great night and we'll see you tomorrow. Good night.